Howdy champs, welcome to part 2. So as promised in this part, I'm going to explain from the very beginning, from scratch, how I created the div, which is the stripy div. Let me bring up my local site folder. So in my local site folder, people, I have these two textures, and this is the HTML document. Let me open up the HTML document for you just to refresh your memories. This was the different color stripes, background image stripes that I created. This was a single div and which got transformed into the structure. So let's see how this was actually done. Let's do it from the very beginning. So I'm going to save file and a new and blank page, HTML, none. Let's say create. Let me scrap the whole code. I'm going to use Zen coding. It's a code assist plugin that allows you to code real fast. People, you can grab the plugin off the internet, are absolutely free, and you can install it inside. You can install it as an extension for Dreamweaver, and then you'll be able to code as fast as I am about to show you. If you don't have that extension, do not worry. Just code out the normal way. Let me, say HTML:5 and press Control plus comma together and see the way the code actually expands. Simply because I'm using Zen coding, a code assist plugin that allows you to code real quick, just the way I'm doing it. To start off with, people, let me push in some title. The source code can be grabbed from my website, quality lessons.net /downloads1.html. Yes, you can grab the source code from our website with this link. Okay, let me save the document up. Let's just say, CSS3 stripes. Right, let's forge ahead. So between the opening and the closing body tags, people, let me push in a div with, let's say, an ID of stripes. Press Control plus comma to expand the code this way. Again, this is happening because I'm using Zen coding. It's an extension for Dreamweaver that you can easily grab off the internet absolutely free. Alright. Next up, people, what I'm going to do, I'm going to click out here. It says stripes. I'm going to click on this plus button to create a new CSS rule. It will be an ID rule. Okay. It's getting saved in, itself in this document itself, which is okay. I can have it be saved as an external style sheet too. Let's say okay. And then I'm going to go to the box category, people. I'm going to have a width of 50% going, a height of let's say 180 px, and let's say okay. Alright, so far all that I've done is basically created a div with a width of 50%, a height of 180 px. Now next up, people, I'm gonna use the background shorten property. Alright, so this is the syntax. Next, I'm gonna choose the URL that I wish to use as the background image. So this first texture, I would want the texture to be placed at left top and repeat along the x-axis. Okay, put a semicolon. At this point, let me save the document up and check it up in the browser. Sorry. Okay, so all that has happened is basically, the image has been repeated along the x-axis, and that's all that has happened so far. Now I'm actually ready to bring in the second image, because with CSS3 you are actually allowed to push in more than one image as the background image. So again, URL, people, this time I'm going to choose the second image, texture 2. I'm going to say okay, and this is going to be placed at bottom right. So just under the first image. The first one was at left top, this is at bottom right, and again I'm going to repeat it along the x-axis. Okay, so let's save the document up, bring up the browser, Let's refresh, and people, quite clearly we have two layers, one below the other inside for our division, which is actually 180 in height, and these two strips or layers were 90 each, so that fills up the entire width. Okay, I'm going to push in one more rule right here at the top, just after the style tag for the body, and I'm going to say margin top of, let's say, 120 px, basically just creating a cushion at the top of the page. Okay, so you see the division got shifted downwards. Next, people, I said that I'm going to show you how to use box shadows in a way that creates stripes. First of all, let's understand that box shadows can be just like you see, just like the background images, we can have background shadows, multiple background shadows, comma separated. Let's see how we are going to do that. Okay, I'm going to press enter here, use the box shadow property. People, I'm not using any vendor prefixes, which are most modern contemporary browsers are going to support the box shadow property, but you can use vendor prefixes like dash, moz dash for Mozilla, Firefox dash, O dash for Opera, dash WebKit dash for Chrome and Safari, the WebKit browsers. But again, in this example, I'm not going to use any vendor prefix, just to keep things simple. But you can do a compatibility check, and if need be, you can use the vendor prefixes. Okay, so box shadow. And I would want the box shadow, let's say the first box shadow, to have any color, which is absolutely fine, but shift downwards by 90 px on the y-axis, but on the x-axis stay where it is. So on the x-axis 0, no shift. On the y-axis, I would want it to shift by 90 px. Okay, and let's say have a color of let's go with plum, and put a semicolon. So basically just using a single box shadow out here. Bring the browser up, let's refresh, and quite clearly, people, you have 120 px of margin for the body out here, and this is the first box shadow that appears out here, and since it was shifted 90 pixels towards the bottom, it appears out here toward, and appears like a stripe, and it has the same height as the images we have used out here. Okay, very good. And again, I can have comma separated box shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this bit, Control C. I'm going to paste it out here, but just change the color. Let's say go with chocolate this time. But at the same time, I would want it to have a shift of 180, because it's going to leave the first two images and also leave the plum shadow. It's going to be shifted further down below. Okay, so it's a shift of the height of the division, and the box shadow. Okay, so basically I've just added 90 to the earlier value. So 90 plus 90 makes it 180. So let's save the document up, bring the browser up, and let's refresh. So basically 90 pixels here and 90 pixels here, that is the way it appears like a second layer, people. That is the way, that is the reason why I had actually displaced it by 180 px. You see, why 180 and why 90? Let me explain that again. Let's consider the chocolate layer. If this was 0 pixels for the y-axis, this is going to tuck itself right behind the div. But setting it at 180, make sure that it clears the first box shadow too. And why was that displaced by 90? Because if it was displaced by 0, again this is going to tuck itself behind the division. Placing it 90, make sure that it actually protrudes out. In reality, the height of both these box shadows is equal to the height of the division itself by default, which is 180. Okay, that is the way, people, it appears like a sandwich layer. So the trick is to keep on adding 90. out here. And let's add a third color too. So let's copy this bit. Let's put a comma, let's paste. Just add 90 again, so that should make it 270, and this chocolate actually becomes again any other color, people. Let's say saddle brown. Right, and at this point let's save the document up, bring the browser up, let's refresh the browser to see the third color in action as well. So just keep on adding 90px to see another layer show up out here, people. In reality, this saddle brown box shadow is actually of the same height as the division, which is 180, and it's displaced 270 pixels from the top. So this, it leaves this area, and this area, and then half of it is stuck behind this color and half of it shows out here. Okay, so using this trick, just keep on adding 90 and use a different color, background color, and this is the way your stripy structure is gonna take shape. Okay, next, people, I'm gonna add 2 more layers. Let's see how I can actually do that. So just copy this bit, and just before the style tag, let's create one more rule. This is gonna be the colon before rule, and just after the last box shadow, I'm going to use the position property. I'm going to set it to relative. Why am I using it relative? Is simply because the next rule will be absolute, and it will be absolute to the hash stripes rule. So let's start constructing the hash stripes rule, colon before, so you'll get a fair idea what's going on out here. Why did I actually use position relative? So that I can use position property out here too, but this time it's going to be absolute. Okay. Now the colon before pseudo class allows you to add some content before the division, and let's see how we can actually do that. So we have to use the content property. Again, people, if you do not understand the colon before and colon after rules, I would urge you to check out some other tutorials from me, or check out the literature and then come back to this tutorial, because I'm not going to cover it very extensively. I'm going to keep the content blank. Now that's a trick that we follow most of the times to create elements that I'm about to show you right now. So the content property, which usually sometimes contains some text which goes before the the element stripes, but in our case I'm going to keep it blank, simply because I'm going to push in something else rather than some text. And what's that something else going to be? It's going to be a background color. So background, shorten property again, and let's say a color of about, let's say 555, or rather let's go with okay, let's go with this color, hash 558. And since the element is positioned absolute, I can control it using the top property. I'm going to shift it at the roof, above the roof actually, so it's going to be 90px. I'm going to shift the background color at the top of the division, people, protruding towards the outside from the roof above by 90px. At the same time, I'm going to decide the width to be 100% of the division width. So 100% of the division width. So that's going to flush the entire division from left to right. And at the same time, it should have a height, which is the height of all the layers that I've kept so far, 90px. at this point, people, let me show you how this rule actually affects the whole equation. So let me save the document up, and I'm going to refresh, and very clearly a new layer actually appears above the division. It's protruding 90px above the roof, people. It's gone outside the division. It's created content before the division. The division had the position property of relative, and this stripe, the background color stripe, has the position property absolute. So it's actually absolute to this relative division. By how much? By minus 90px. So that's gonna make sure that's pushed outside the division above the roof by 90px. Okay, so far so good, people. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this rule, which is just above the closing style tag. I'm gonna paste it down below out here. Okay, I'm gonna make certain changes to the rule. This colon before becomes colon after. So colon after rule is used to append some content after the element. So I'm going to keep the position absolute. Again, this content is going to be relative to the division. That's the reason I'm going to keep the position absolute. It's relative to the division. The content is again null. Instead of using background color, I'm going to use a background image. It could be any of the two images that I've been using so far. Okay, so I'm going to say URL. Again, people, at this point I can use texture one or this texture image or this texture. Let's say I would go with the first one this time. Okay, and if I don't specify the position, it's always top left, people, and but by default it's going to repeat itself along the x-axis, or I can simply mention that too. There's no harm in mentioning that, because even if you don't mention it, it's going to repeat itself not only along the x-axis but also along the y-axis. So I'm just making sure that it repeats itself only along the x-axis. This top position is going to change to 450. This time it's not going to protrude above the roof, but it's going to protrude from the footer, from the feet. Okay, the last box shadow. So I've actually done all my calculations. 90 into 5 is 450, so it's going to leave 450 and then it's going to show up. Alright, I think the rule looks fine to me. Again, the width is 100px, basically the entire width of the division, and it's going to push itself outside from the foot, and this is going to push itself outside from the top. Okay, so let's see how things stand at the moment. Let me save the file up. Let's bring the browser up. Ideally it should show up here at the foot, people. Right, and let's refresh, and quite clearly, people, you can see that this last layer is a replica of this layer and come out from the footer, and this had gone above the header. This is loosely speaking the header. This was loosely speaking the footer. So the colon before and colon after rules ensured that they actually went above and below the header in the footer, and I've actually attained the structure that I promised. I'm going to show you, and this is the way things look like, just the way I thought as I had set out to attain. Alright, people, so you see it's not at all difficult to create such structures using CSS3, and I'm completely justified in saying the treasures are deep down inside. Dig deeper into CSS3 to uncover them and use them to the fullest and set your web pages on fire. You have a good day, people. Bye bye. Peace.